Okay. All right, we're gonna try this again, except this time I'm not gonna make a bolt. I'm gonna just try to make a straight cylinder. See if this works. And if Mrs. Eslinger cusses, you guys are gonna be great students and not tell anybody, right? Okay, because sometimes I might say something bad if it's not going well and don't know I'm saying it. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna center the clay. And I know you can have diagrams. So the centering the clay, you don't want it to wobble, okay? And we do this a couple ways. The first thing we do is we cone up, okay? And you're gonna press on the bottom and get pressure up like this with this part of your hands together. Brace your elbows on your knees, okay? Okay, and once it's there, you're gonna lock your hands. Remember, we have this lock position. We come back to this a lot. Brace this elbow on this knee, and then you're going to push it, compress it down. This hand is going to be vertical and holding the wall so it doesn't become a pancake. This hand is going to be straight down. Okay, so you're going to kind of want to compress it into this box area that your hand makes. Okay. Remember, if you feel any friction with your hands anywhere, add more water. Okay. So my left hand stays vertical, my right hand goes down, and this is hard to do and talk at the same time. I think we've all talked about how the talking side of your brain and the creative side of your brain don't necessarily work very well at the same time. That's why Mrs. Eslinger says the wrong word sometimes, or when I'm deep into something, I stop talking and I don't realize it. So, coning up, compressing down. Usually do this about 2 or 3 times until you see that it's not wiggling anymore. Even though this isn't wiggling on the outside, sometimes you can still have denser areas deep in the clay that's not centered, so that's why you want to do it about 2 or 3 times. I just think 3 times is always a safe bet. So cone it up. Press it down. Brace your elbows on your knees. Okay, one more time. Still wobbling. I might have to do another time and not talk to you. Okay, I'm not talking this time. I like to get right on top of the clay. When my chest and my nose are right over top of the clay, it helps everything stay centered, so I'm not pulling the clay toward me if I'm too far back, because sometimes if I'm too far back, and you're pulling it without realizing it, so brace those elbows on your knees and get right over top of it, okay? So when you get to about this point, and it's pretty centered, you don't see a lot of wobbling, this is about the time I slow the wheel down. When I center, I don't go like super fast as the wheel can go, but it's a pretty high rate of speed. So I'm gonna clean off my wheel bat, that's what I call this thing. I'm just gonna smooth this out a little bit with my sponge. About this part, I want medium speed. Okay, so now we're gonna open, right? So, a lot of this takes practice, so you don't accidentally go too deep into the clay and run a hole all the way through the bottom. So we're gonna press down with our 2 fingers. We're gonna go straight down, and these hands, your hands always make contact with each other to lock. So you have a brace, you have a strong tripod, you have this triangle that your hands make. Triangles are the strong shape, okay? So remember that. Always have your hands touching and braced. Okay, so we're gonna do this. You're gonna go straight down. You're just gonna have to kind of guess where to stop until you've really practiced a lot. Okay, so I'm gonna go straight down. Same thing, get way over. And I think it'd be probably better to have a little bit too thick of a bottom than too thin, because we can always trim the bottom when we flip it over. But if it's too thin, it's going to crack. You can't do anything to fix a bottom that's too thin. Okay, so now what we're going to be doing is you're going to take the inside, we're going to take this hand on the inside, and we're going to hook it. We're going to hook these two fingers, and we're going to pull these two fingers towards our belly button. Okay, and that's going to open the cylinder. And you're going to do that until you get the cylinder, the opening part, the way you want it to be. Okay? Brace your hands together, elbows on your knees. Pull gently. Nothing is a sudden movement. You don't touch the clay suddenly, and you don't release the clay suddenly. You always let go of it slowly, and you approach it slowly. Okay? It's like a dog. You don't want to scare a dog, right? You don't come up to it quick or make fast movements. So you have to do it slow. So let's say this is about the opening size I want. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Okay. So when we're throwing on the wheel, one of the most basic shapes, three-dimensional forms that we start with are cylinders. That's probably about the most basic shape that you start with. Cylinders are a lot easier to start working with than like bowls, because bowls are like a half of a sphere. And centrifugal force is like a merry-go-round. The faster this goes, if you're on a merry-go-round and it goes fast, gravity and centrifugal force is pulling you, wants to make you fly off the merry-go-round. The same thing happens with clay. So if we have a form that the sides are very angled, it takes a lot of skill to control that clay so the centrifugal force doesn't pull it too far or flop it over. So bowls are harder to start with because they have that curved bottom. So cylinders are really something that's a little bit easier to learn when you're throwing. Okay, so the walls, and you can see the walls of this clay are pretty thick. Okay, we need to thin them out, of course, and we want to make them taller because this is not going to be a cylinder or a coffee mug or a vase or whatever you want it to be. So the first thing I do is I take my finger and I kind of just put it into the bottom here, and I kind of like make like a notch. I'm going to take a little bit of clay off. You kind of see that notch I made. Okay, we're going to lift the clay from under that notch. It's called a pull. Okay, so what you're going to do, your hands are going to be braced. The inside hand is going to be curved into a C. The outside hand is going to be curved into a C. Your thumbs are locked. Then you're going to pull it up. So you're going to be pushing in from the bottom and pulling up into this one. And it takes a little practice. And it's hard to do while I'm talking. Let me get that for a second here. And that was a very bad pull. It did not go very far. It didn't get very thin. It didn't get very high. Like I said, I haven't done this for about 2 weeks, so I'm a little rusty. I don't get a lot of time on the wheel as it is. And I might speed it up a little bit. When we're at this part, I really don't want to get too fast because of that centrifugal force. You want even pressure from the bottom to the top, because if you're not having even pressure, then that's where you're going to have spots in your walls that are thick or thin, and that takes practice too. Okay, so one thing I do at the top, I usually will do this thing called compressing the lip. So the lip is the top of any form that we're making. And to do that, I just take my hands like here, and I just press gently with this finger, and it helps compress the clay molecules, so that when this dries, there's less likely of a chance for the lip to crack. Okay. I'm going to clean out the inside. Sometimes you get a lot of water on the inside. It gets a little messy. So sponges aren't just for dribbling water. Sometimes they're for cleaning water too. So as I'm pulling up, oh shoot, see? I did something wrong there. This is why we make practice videos, people. Okay, so I'm, what am I doing? Oh, I'm pulling again. Okay. That last pull, that was a very bad pull. trying to talk at the same time. So what I felt this time as I was putting pressure on there, I felt that the bottom of the walls were thicker than the top. So I'm going to do this again, and I'm going to try to not talk during this time, and I'm going to try to give more pressure to the bottom and take that thickness and spread it up, okay, until I get to that point here where the walls get thinner. Then I'm probably just going to gently release. We'll see. Yeah, so at the top, I went ahead and pulled all the way to the top, but when I was at the top, I wasn't giving any pressure to the clay. I was just kind of gently finishing, so I didn't leave any weird finger marks. Okay, I think I'm going to do one more pull. Okay, so if you had a teacher who was super talented, and it's not me, you had a cylinder that was just perfect. So my cylinder is a little wide. It's got kind of a fat waist, a little bit narrow here. So let's say I want to have it really straight up and down. My fingers probably aren't the best tools to do that, to make it perfectly straight up and down. We have a lot of different tools we could experiment with. One of the best ones is like an old credit card or an old hotel key card. Those are good. I also have a wooden kidney. Look at this. Let me get that out too. So this wooden kidney really works really well. So sometimes I'll take, I like this better. I'll take this and just kind of hold it next to it, and it'll do a couple things. It might compress some of that clay that's a bump, and it also will shave off. It'll shave off a little bit of excess clay and kind of even those out. Like I said, Mrs. Eslinger is not a expert potter. I only get to do this every once in a while. Maybe when my kids are all out of the house, I'll spend a whole summer just throwing coffee cups and give everybody a coffee cup or something, and I'll be an expert at it. So this is what I like to do, and I'm not going to worry too much about the bottom because we're going to take care of the bottom later. We're going to trim it and what we call a foot, and we'll get talking about that later. And as you'll notice, a lot of the terms that we use on jars and pots and stuff are similar to the human body: lip, belly, foot, shoulder. You know, if you have one with a tall part of it could be a neck. Just something that we do. I'm going to compress this one more time, and what I've noticed is that, I'm not sure if you can see it. Yeah, you can see it. The top is not centered. It's kind of wobbly. So we're going to even up the top with a needle tool. If I can find my needle, there it is. There's my needle tool. Okay, so my needle tool, just a needle. Okay, brace my elbows. I'm going to put this finger on the inside, and I'm going to put this needle on the outside, and I'm going to gently push the needle into my finger. When I feel the needle touch my finger, I'm going to lift up. And if I do it right, it will pull a perfect circle of clay off the top, and then everything will be even. But once you start pushing this needle in, you don't want this needle to go up and down. You just want it to go straight in to the clay. I'm gonna mess up. Okay, I'm also bracing touching my thumbs together to brace and keep that strong triangle we're always talking about. Yay, I did it. Look at that. Woohoo. Okay, put that to the side. I'm going to get a little bit more, and I'm going to clean up the lip a little bit. When I cut that, it's going to make kind of a sharp edge. And we've already talked about in 6th grade and 7th grade and earlier in 8th grade that when we have these sharp edges and it goes into the kiln and comes out of the kiln, it's become a rock, right? And if we leave these sharp edges there, they'll become really sharp and they'll cut you. So we need to dull them down, okay? You do it a couple ways. You can use your finger just gently to soften it. You can use a sponge just gently. We're not We're not changing the shape, we're not jamming it down, we're just gently. Okay, so let's say this is a good cup. Okay, we can stop here. Okay, if you want to try to do some shaping, this is a general first step. And if you're happy with this, we can cut it off the wheel, let it dry, and move on. If you want to do something a little bit more advanced, you can start trying to shape the cup. You know, stretch it out, make it a little bit narrower in places. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fingers and I'm going to lock my thumbs again. I'm going to put it on the inside, but this time instead of pulling up, I'm going to start gently pushing from the inside out, and I'm going to try to maybe make the bottom of this swell a little bit. So let's see how we go. My thumbs are touching, bracing. My left elbow is up in the air. You can see it changed shape a little bit. My left elbow is up in the air just because I can't reach in there well with my elbow in there. So I'm gonna have to lift up. But this one is braced. Okay, so I still have my triangle. It's strong. I have bracing on my knees. Okay. Professional potters who do this all the time are so good that they don't have to brace on their knees. But Mrs. Eslinger is still not a professional. Oh, shoot. That looks ugly. I'm not sure if I would drink coffee out of this cup, but whatever. Yeah, maybe I would. You guys know Mrs. Eslinger. I'm desperate for coffee in the morning and in the afternoon. I'll drink coffee out of anything. Okay. Oh my goodness, it is so hard to throw a pot and talk at the same time. Maybe this is a vase. Sometimes we have mistakes like that happen. Okay, let's say you want to make part of it narrower. You can experiment a little bit with like pushing in and things like that. I like to do this. I like to make my fingers, it's not a very good sign, sorry. But I like to do this with my fingers, and then I will put my thumbs and my middle fingers, and I will press them together at the same rate, and sometimes even go up. So when we pull and when we shape it, we always are working on the right side of the wheel. So the clay is going away from us. This is a little different. You're actually going to be, one hand the clay is going away from you, and one hand the clay is going towards you. So you have to be a little bit gentle. This isn't something you can force very easily. You kind of have to coax it. You know, like I said earlier, we approach the clay kind of like a dog. No sudden movements. When you try to force something to happen is usually when you're going to make a mistake. Okay? Well, all right. I'm going to keep doing this just because I need something to show you how to trim a foot, but this is an ugly mug. But that's okay. The last thing I do before I take it off the wheel is I am going to compress that lip a little bit. It's all right. All right, last thing. What we're going to be doing is you're going to take your wire tool, or my wire tool. I think it's the only one I have, the only good one I have. And you're going to slow the wheel way down. You're going to twist it around your fingers. I hold the ends in my palms and I twist it so that I have pressure with my thumbs on the wire. And I'm going to press down and pull to me. Okay, I don't want to lift up. I'm pressing into the bat a couple times and cutting it off. Okay, don't touch it yet. All right, so we're going to turn it off now. Got the wheel turned off. Actually, I'm going to turn it back on because the inside of this is really wet. I'm just going to suck up some of the moisture. You guys hear my Adele? We ain't kids no more. Okay, now I'm going to turn off. Okay, it's probably pretty wet. Before you touch your clay or anything else, you're going to want to dry your hands off. Let me get a rag back here. I have my pot lifters. Okay, I'm going to wipe my hands off. Finish up this video real quick. Okay, so pot lifters. Hold on. Okay, we're gonna get one of our little wooden boards or wooden squares. Set it off there. Okay, my pot lifters are stuck together. Of course they are. Okay. Okay, so what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna slide this gently in, and these two are gonna go over top of each other until it's underneath enough that you can pick it up, and you're gonna put it onto the board and slide them off, okay? Put that right there. Okay. This would probably be easier if you had the cart right next to you, or if you had another student holding this. If you do, I mean, it could fall off into the wheel. So do as I say and not as I do. One of those things, right? Okay, so I'm gonna put it down flush with that. Wiggle it in if you need to, gently. You don't wanna, once again, you don't wanna force it because you don't want to change the shape of the mug, right? So we're gonna lift it gently, put it onto the board, gently wiggle it off. Might need a little help with this, but we really don't want to touch it with our fingers because we'll leave fingerprints. Okay, I'm going to leave this to dry partially overnight and to get to that leather hard stage to where we can trim it. So we're going to come back. This is very, very wet, so I'm not even going to cover it. All right,